So I have received a lot of requests for pattern or how to make the masks that I've been making. I figured the easiest way to do it is I would make a video and then I will include the materials, the material list or whatever, in the description or whatever when I send it on to people. So a couple quick tips that'll make this go a lot faster. For me, cutting the material is the worst, most boring, awful part. And so what I do is I cut a lot of it at one go. And so then I just take each set of 2 pieces, put them right sides together, and then fold them in half. And I throw in probably 4 pins. I don't know if you can see them. They're very light colored pins. But I just throw a pin on each side to kind of hold them in place. And so that way, when I have a few minutes, I can sit down and just crank through a whole bunch of them because they're ready to go. I also have already pre-cut my elastic. I've been using this jewelry elastic. It's kind of thin and I think it's actually pretty comfortable to wear. And it also comes in a lot of colors. So when I'm doing like the lemon material, I'll do the yellow. When I'm doing the Nightmare Before Christmas, I'll do red or whatever. But as I run out of red, because I've been doing that for the Red Sox masks and the Patriots mask, I've been using the red and the blue for those, I can switch to purple. Honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, but I'm just, anal retentive about color stuff. So the other thing I've been doing is I've been adding in a nose piece, and I just started doing that the other day. So to do it, you just take a regular chenille pipe cleaner, make a little bracelet out of it. So just give it a little cross, fold these over, and then squash that in half. And so what I've been doing is using the remaining end to really double and triple over that sharp edge. It won't matter because I've been putting it in flannel, so you can do that and you're gonna be fine. But if you just loop it around like this a couple times, it'll wrap that end very nicely into the rest of the pipe cleaner. So then this is what you're left with. And then I just take a piece of, I've been using, like I said, flannel. I take a piece of flannel that's a little bit longer than the bent out pipe cleaner, fold that in half, put a couple pins in it, run it through the machine. And then when I'm done, what I'm left with is this, and then I cut the ends down so that they're the same length as the pipe cleaner. You want to be able to kind of have the pipe cleaner peeking out just about, because you don't want any weird lumps or bulk in the mask. And so then that is what you're left with. So we're all set. So I think that's everything as far as getting set up. I've got a bag full of the pipe cleaners done. I have the bag full of ties or ear pieces or whatever done. And then I have all the cloth done. And so the actual act of doing the mask should go pretty quickly. So try to identify the top of your mask. This material is awesome because it can go either way it looks. This is the Nightmare Before Christmas material. I don't have one made here. I already mailed them out. So identify what you're going to consider to be the top of the mask. In this case, I don't think it really matters. And so when you're looking at it as you would feed it through the machine, you're going to start sewing at the top of this bottom third here. And the reason for that is, I'm going to pull this pin, we don't need it. The reason for that is when we're finished with this phase, we'll have gone all the way around and we will go to the bottom of the top third, leaving that middle third open so we can turn this back right side out. So with anything, I like to get it lined up and ready to go, drop a few stitches and then reverse over it so you're kind of sewing down the end. I'll hand advance it to be where I want it to be, and I like the needle down here because what I'm going to do is lift it up and pivot. I'm going to pull this pin. Be careful when you're doing this though, because you don't want to put a ton of tension on the sewing machine needle. For those of you who sew all the time and you already know this, sorry, but for those of you who are newer to sewing, it's a surefire way to wreck your needle. If you bend it even the slightest bit, it won't. You'll be losing your mind because you're going to have all sorts of weird knots and stuff, and it's just because the needle's gone crazy. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to take this bottom pin out as well. You've got your piece of elastic that you're using as the tie. You put little knots on both ends, and so you're going to separate the 2 pieces of material, and you're going to kind of tuck this all in here. And the goal is to have a little bit of the knot sticking out from the seam here. And so I will actually get the knot where I want it to be first and then hold it in place and use my fingernail to make sure that I'm pushing the elastic back against the seam. And then once you have it where you want it to be, the first part is easier than the second part. The second part, you kind of have to hang on to it because now you've got tension on it and it wants to pull away. But you drop the presser foot down and it'll hold it in place. And so here I'm going to drop a couple stitches, but then I'm going to reverse over it twice because I really want to make sure that I've locked that elastic in there. Same thing, advance to where you want to be. I'm going to go one more, pivot on the needle, reach back in between the two layers of material and find the knotted end. And then hold on to this corner that's already sewn, I'm not sure. And then use your fingernail again to push it to the end and hold it in place because it's going to want to shoot out of here. And then drop the presser foot down on it. A couple stitches, reverse. Take this last pin out. You're gonna have, it's gonna pucker here, but that's okay. That's just because of the elastic. And that will actually be fine once we do the ends, because we're gonna pleat the ends. And so now we've got the last elastic going down. Same thing, peel the two pieces of cloth apart, in theory. Stuff that down in there, and then just line the knot up with the outside edge. And then once it's there, use your fingernail to make sure it's flush against the back. You really want to make sure that you're not wasting any elastic and you're not sewing any weird bubbles into it or something. And now you're just going to go down about a third of the way, do your reverse stitches and pull it loose. Okay, so now all set there. So you've got your, come on, I can't never grab a hold of anything. You've got the remaining opening down here. So that means the other side is going to be your top. What I like to do here, because I'm lazy and I'm not going to measure stuff, so I'm going to take my little pipe cleaner guy and I'm going to fold it in half. And then I'm going to take this top end here, and I'm not going to match up raw edges because those can be deceiving, especially when you cut as haphazardly as I do. I'm going to actually sew up my corner, match up my corner seams. So if that's different, it's different. If it's not, it's not. But matching up the seams means I'm going to get a really good, perfect center, true center. I've folded this in half. I've made it a little L shape, and I'm going to match it up with the seam. And so now I'm going to grab that and I'm going to pin it down. One problem that I find that I have all the time is because I'm left-handed, I have to pin things wrong. So I need to pin this down, and then I'm going to turn it around and repin it. It's just, it's not ideal, but it's not easy being left-handed. I say it all the time. Make sure the seams are lined up. So now I got to go in and repin it here. I don't know why everything has to be built for a right-handed world. I wonder if they make a left-handed sewing machine. It must. It's got to be a thing. If not, that'll be my new apocalypse patent. So use the presser foot to line up with the seam, and then I'll start just a hair, like maybe 4 or 5 stitches early. Early meaning before I get to the flannel. So I'll throw in a few stitches. Once I get to the flannel, I'm going to reverse it real quick. And I'm keeping snugged up against the edge of that pipe cleaner because I want it to be nice and tight. And then just a couple reverse stitches. And then that's all set. Cool. So now we're going to flip it right side out. And then you're just doing that using that bottom third that we left open. And just go in, use the edge of the band or the earpiece or the elastic, or some people now are using bias tape, which I do have some just in case I run out or for when I run out of elastic. But just pull those to kind of pull the corners out. There. So I like to make sure all of the threads and everything are tucked in there. And then I'm going to pull this kind of taut. Get in there, you bugger. Make sure those edges are lined up. And then throw a pin in, likely the wrong direction. And that'll hold that in place. And you're just trying to kind of keep the integrity of the shape, more or less. And so now you got to do a little bit of work to make sure you've straightened out this stupid pipe cleaner because it wants to go rogue. Once you've turned it inside out, it's all bent and whatever. So once you get it straight, I like to kind of get a hold of the 2 pieces of material and do a lot of pushing and rolling and just try to get that to lay flat in there. And then I'm going to throw in some pins. I like to, you see how, I don't know if it's easy to see or not, but I'm really kind of pushing the nose piece up against the seam because I want to kind of straighten out that seam there, and then I'll throw in a pin just to hold the shape that we're trying to maintain here. And of course I'll do it backwards because I put in every pin backwards. Yeah, that's less comfortable. I guess that'll have to do. And I like to use the pins as a guide where to start my stitches too. So we're going to start right in that corner. A couple stitches and a couple reverse. We're going to go nice and straight. And we're going to come up to this first pin, and that says we're in good shape. And I'm using my fingers to kind of hold the shape of the cloth because I really want to sew it down against the pipe cleaner pin. When I get to the corner, I like to do the pivot method, but you can just sew around the corner, whatever you're comfortable doing. Come on. So the original plan or the original pattern or whatever called for making the pleats and then doing this part. And I think part of the reason why is it is a bit of a pain to fight around the elastic, but I just think in the grand scheme of things, try it both ways. But I think doing it the other way just really was the pits. Because then you just had so much to fight with and work with, and I just hated it. So I started doing it this way and it goes much faster for me. Right, and so here, because we're going to get into some pleating, is where I would cut off any of the remaining threads from the stitches. Luckily, we ended up in the same corner we started, of course, so it's not too hard to get rid of. Oh my God, my house is covered in string. So now we're gonna do the folds. These are just kind of they're a little bit fussy. They're fussier if you're super anal retentive, and I am. So I have to make sure they line up well on both sides. And so to do that, yeah, like that's crooked already, I can tell. The nose piece really kind of throws stuff off a little bit. So you have to be mindful when you're doing the folding. It's just gonna look a little wonkier than it really is. Start the pinning low enough down that it's gonna hold the shape at the top being the edge, but low enough that you don't have to pull the pins as you're sewing, because that will be a big pain. I really love this material. That looks good. Hope you right-handers all appreciate how easy you've got it. Nothing is developed well for left-handers. Even left-handed scissors. I know that people are always like, well, just get left-handed scissors. They're terrible. So right-handed scissors don't cut correctly for me. And a lot of people don't understand, like don't even understand that part. Don't understand why the scissors don't work well. But if you look at how scissors are made, I don't know how to explain it, but wherever I think I'm cutting with my scissors, I'm looking over here, I'm actually cutting quite a bit further off to the left, and it's really hard. You have to learn to compensate for that. Such a strange thing, but when you really notice it when you're doing something like this, when you're trying to cut patterns, and then you're like, yeah, I just cut that so straight, and then you look and you're like, oh, nope, I didn't come anywhere close to the edge. But it's kind of like cutting in your built-in seam edge, so I guess there's that. Silver linings. All right, so you've got this pinned down. You've got your there should be 3 folds in each piece. And so what we're going to do is use that original seam that we'd already done around the whole thing as the guide for just sewing down this last little piece. So line that seam up with the presser foot and start right on it. A few stitches in, a few stitches back, and then just cook right across all of the pleats. And then a couple reverse, and that's it. I mean, that part, when you're not doing it the way they had me doing it before, is so much easier. And then just pull those pins loose. And then just flip to the other side. Same thing, drop right where the stitches start, reverse it. Reverse stitches. And that's it. Pins. I just want to clip the ends really nicely. With your non-left-handed scissors. And that's that. So it took me about 20 minutes when all was said and done to, in fact, exactly 20 minutes to do this, but I spent a lot of time talking and showing. So I think it's a reasonable estimate. It's taking me about 10 minutes or so, maybe a little bit more if one gets wonky on me. And that's largely because I've already cut all the pieces. So I've got everything I need ready to go in little bags here. And so I've got like my production line. But so here's the top of your mask, and now you're able to bend that nose piece to fit around your nose. Look how cute this stupid material is. I love it so much. So that's that. Like I said, it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. I think the pleating is the most obnoxious part. But even that has gotten better. I think it looks much better now. So again, just going over the pattern list, the material list, take a square of cardboard, stiff paper, whatever you've got. Cut this to be about 10 by 7. And then you can cut multiple layers of cloth at one time this way. So I'll cut probably like 8 layers of cloth at one time. And so in doing so, that gives you, you know, a handful of masks all at one go. So do this ahead of time. Cut your elastic, if that's what you're using, to about 7.5 inches and throw the knots in them. And then you can make a little baggie up of those. So those are all ready to go. Then do your pipe cleaners. I've got a whole pile of the pipe cleaners already folded here. And all I have to do is now sew them into the flannel. These are, I like to break the tasks up into kind of like discrete, manageable tasks, because if I just sat here and just did all of it at one go, it would be kind of daunting. Plus my attention span is absolutely terrible, so I just can't do anything for very long. So like after I'm done with this video, I'm gonna go off and probably cut a tree down or something. But I have all my flannel strips ready. I was watching TV last night and made a whole bunch of these, pinned them, and then had just a pile of the pinned ones. And then this morning I went through and just ran them through and cut the ends down, and then made up a batch of those. I've used most of them already because I've done a ton of masks this morning. But yeah, so that's basically it. So your 10 by 7 squares of cloth, or rectangles of cloth, your 7.5 inches worth of elastic or whatever you're using, and then 1 chenille pipe cleaner folded down like I showed you, and then sewn into this thing here. And then just kind of do a little production line style. I like to do a whole bunch of masks up and then doing everything except for that last pleat. So I'll just have a flat stack of all of the masks, and then I'll go through pleat, pin, sew, pleat, pin, sew, pleat, pin, sew, and then go through and clip all the ends at one time. So again, production line makes it a little bit less boring for me, and it makes it more productive. It makes it go much quicker, which I think makes it less terrible. But all in all, these are actually pretty relaxing and kind of, I don't like to use the word fun very often, but they're enjoyable to make. And then, you know, it's really nice to have these finished products. I'm making a batch to go out today, and then I'm starting on my next batch this afternoon. My own little plug is that just keep in mind a couple things. These are not going to help you. They are going to help other people. So if you wear them, you are preventing your potential spread. If other people wear them, they are preventing that potential spread to you. So give a little, take a little, right? So if we all wear them, we should all be preventing the spread to anybody else. The second plug is try wearing them around the house for a little bit. They're going to be a little obnoxious at first. You're not going to be used to them. So you're going to touch your face more, and that's kind of counterproductive. So just get used to wearing them. I do think that the nose bands help with that, though. When I was doing them without the nose bands, I felt like they were always shifting, and I was touching them a lot more. So putting the nose band in, I feel like helped a ton, because it's in place and you don't feel like you constantly have to shift it and touch it. And then lastly, if you're going to start making these in bulk for people, what I've been doing is having Ziploc bags. My hands are washed when I start the process, but I am breathing. And so I can only do so much here. So you could wear a mask while you're making them, I suppose, if you wanted to really go that bananas. But I just take them, I have a spray bottle of rubbing alcohol, and I hold them and spray them quickly on each side at a distance, and then throw them right into a Ziploc bag. Obviously, if you're receiving a mask, you should be washing it before you wear it. That's kind of like common sense. I'm not going to send you underwear and then say, here, just put it on and trust me. I don't wear underwear anyway, I suppose, so that's really not an issue. But the principle applies. You didn't want to just take these out of the pack and be like, okay, I'm good to go, and put it on your face. I would definitely wash them first. If you have any questions, obviously message me, but I hope this was helpful, and I will include the materials list to anybody I send this to. Awesome. Happy sewing.